لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك
Take a second and picture this. You're on your flight back home from performing Umrah. You are spiritually rejuvenated and you're ready to come back home and start a brand new routine. So far, your flight has been great, and now you're ready to just hand over your passport to a Customs and Border Protection agent and you're ready to go. But that's not what happens. They pull you to the side and they're asking you about where you pray, the name of your imam, and they've even asked you to turn over your cell phone. Do you know how you would react? How you would respond? What you would say? If you're not sure, then stay tuned and keep watching. Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Nicole Foster Bradford. I'm the Community Advocacy Director at CARE National. I'm coming to you with an important advisory. We have received an uptick in reports that community members have been stopped and inappropriately questioned at the border. We want you to know what your rights are at the border when traveling and know what to do in case something goes wrong. First, I'll talk about TSA, the Transportation Security Administration, and then I'm going to talk about CBP, the Customs and Border Protection. And I'm going to discuss what to do in case something goes wrong. Please note that our conversation today is not tantamount to legal advice, so seek the consultation of an attorney if you believe your rights have been violated. Let's talk TSA. The Transportation Security Administration is the agency that screens passengers, cargo, and bags to detect prohibited and dangerous objects and materials to ensure the safety of travelers. You encounter TSA as a preliminary or primary checkpoint soon after entering the airport, but before going to your terminal or your gate. You're typically required to remove shoes and large electronics for inspection. You are also prompted to pass through a body scanner so that your person can also be inspected for weapons. As a general rule, loose-fitting or bulky garments or head coverings can be subject to additional pat-down screenings. You have the right to maintain whatever religious garb you are wearing. You can opt out of the body scanners, but you will be subject to an enhanced pat-down if so. You have the right to request that the pat-down be conducted of someone of your same sex. You have the right to ask that the pat-down occur in a private space. However, you may experience delays in the officer's processing and finding a secure space. If you know that privacy is something that's important to you and that you'd really prefer a closed setting for such a pat-down, arrive to the airport a little bit earlier to permit some buffer time. Alternatively, if you do not want a TSA agent to touch you or your hijab, for example, you can refuse and prefer to pat down your own hijab. After doing so, they will likely swab your hands to perform a chemical residue test. These are things that individuals typically are aware of, but now I want to move into what happens if you fly internationally. You're going to encounter a different additional agency called Customs and Border Protection, CBP. CBP is tasked with screening foreign visitors, returning American citizens, and imported cargo that enters the U.S. at a port of entry. This could be land, air, or sea. Note that you will encounter CBP if you're traveling internationally, regardless of whether it's land or air. So think going back and forth between the US and Canada via car. Typically, when you return to the US, you're asked standard questions. Where did you go? What was the purpose of your trip? And whether you're bringing anything back with you. Keep your answers minimal. For example, I went to Uganda for a wedding. The concerns arise when you're pulled aside for secondary screenings, and their questions go beyond the task of establishing that you are entering the United States as a citizen or a valid visa holder. Their interaction with travelers is supposed to really be about that issue. Some of the questions we're seeing officers ask during such secondary screenings are invasive and highly inappropriate. Examples include, what mosque do you go to? Can you tell me more about the imam of your local mosque? Can you tell me about your brother who moved overseas 10 years ago, who hasn't set foot back in the US since? We've even seen DHS officials ask about Muslim institutions. And most recently, they've even asked about the email accounts associated with those Muslim institutions. How you should proceed in the face of such questions will depend on your status. Are you a US citizen? Are you a lawful permanent resident, aka a green card holder? Or are you a visa holder? This also includes individuals entering the US without a visa via a waiver. So let's first talk about US citizens. You cannot be denied entry in the country if you are a US citizen for failing to answer such questions. You can politely and firmly state, I decline to answer that question. CBP has only two options at that point. They can either arrest you or release you. If you are in a secondary screening for a prolonged period of time, you can request access to an attorney. Lawful permanent residents. This group cannot generally be denied entry into the country as well. Lawful permanent residents can ask politely and respectfully and decline to answer such questions. However, CBP is permitted to ask questions to ascertain whether a green card holder is in compliance with their status. And now let's talk visa holders. Visa holders can be denied entry for refusing to answer such questions. There is an incredible amount of discretion affecting this group of people. CBP can require someone to return to their country of origin or non-compliance. And so let's quickly talk about electronics, laptops, cell phones, tablets. CBP may ask you to unlock devices or provide passwords. You can and you should refuse if you are a US citizen or an lawful permanent resident who has previously been admitted to the country and has maintained their status. You can repeatedly and politely say, I do not consent to you taking my laptop. Visa holders risk being denied entry into the country if they refuse to provide such a password or hand over their phone, for instance. So what do you do if you find yourself in such a situation? And how do you report it? When you are in a safe and private space, write down everything in as much detail as you can as to what happened, because memories fade over time. You want to write down descriptions of places and people. Note down what exactly was said to you, any questions that you might have been asked, how you responded, how long you were in a secondary screening for, who they might have asked you about as well. If you are traveling with friends or family, have them share with you what they recalled seeing so that you can consolidate a fuller picture of what occurred. This is going to be helpful if you file a complaint down the line or if you want to pursue other action. If your electronics have been confiscated, please write down the name of the officer's agency, their badge number, and the contact number for the agency and ask for a receipt. If you've been subject to inappropriate touching or questioning, write down the officer's name and badge number. This will be helpful if you wish to file a complaint with that agency. And speaking of complaints, you can file a complaint with the Department of Homeland Security's Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. An important note, government officials should not pressure you to sign any documents or give up your authorization to travel to the US. Don't sign anything you're not comfortable with. Please understand that you can reject and do not sign if you're pressured to do so. If you are concerned that you may be subject to mistreatment, please contact an attorney and have the information of your local CARE chapter on hand for immediate support. Please note you are not alone. We are here to support you. Report an incident to care at care.com/report. We provide legal and advocacy support to community members who are being wrongfully targeted while traveling. If you've liked this video, hit the thumbs up and look out for more content from community advocacy. Assalamu alaikum.